Scientists include superior, a natural happening ferment that can overview several of our largest usually contaminating plastic. Domestic animal, the powerful plasticity usually utilized in bottles, conducted hundreds of years to break downward in the environmental. The updated ferment, named as PETase, can begin break downward the identical content in a few days. That could revolutionize the recirculation trial, enabling plastic to be de-used more than efficaciously. UK consumer use about 13 trillion plasticity drinks bottles a year, but more than rather than 3 trillion are not processed. Initially found in Japan, the ferment is manufactured by a bacterial that food domestic animal. Ideonella sakaiensis uses the plasticity as its main power resource. Domestic animal has just been about in extensive quantities above the recent 50-year, so he's in fact not a really length time scale for a bacteria to include developed to eat things so person-made, annotated Professor John McGeehan, who was implicated in the present research. Polyesters, the team of plastic how PET, as well named polythene terephthalate, belongs to happen in environment. They defend factory foliage, explainable the College of Portsmouth investigator. Bacteria include been developing for millions of years to eat how. The selector to PET was nevertheless then rather sudden, and an world crew of scientists set out to define how the PETase ferment had developed. A top determination 3D pattern of the ferment was created, with the strong X-ray beamline at Almaz Lighting Resource in Oxfordshire. One day they understood its pattern. The crew marked how they could enhance the productivity of PETase by set up a few residues on its shallow. This suggests how the nature ferment isn't completely streamlined yet, and down there is the capacity to engineering it. PETase was as well proven on PEF plasticity, a offered factory-based option to PET how is as sluggish to deteriorate in environment. Analyzed by David Schuchman, scientific text editor. The crew over the study at Portsmouth College includes PhD students and though undergraduates, and while I attended their lab their emotion was communicable. They aware how it took smart chemical to style the PET resin utilized in so lot billions of bottles, and they are impressed to include helping discover a way to unpick it. They include grown up in the calamity of plasticity contamination and sense very reasoned on hard to gear it. Yet big challenges lie front in lathe and resourceful opening in a actual world annex. Evolving a method for making the ferment cheap will be one key obstacle, else will be to gear its force on an industry scope. But the is an sample of fast scientific. A kind of bacteria developed to dwell off plasticity in the recent few many decades. The ferment it uses to overview PET was just newly identified. Now we include detailed information of the again designed and more than effective release of how ferment. In the searching for research solutions to the plasticity contamination meltdown, pulse love the is urgent. Polyesters, industrially manufactured of oil, are wide utilized in plasticity bottles and clothes. Present recirculation processes indicate how polyether material pursue a down quality assurance helical, loser several of their properties every period they go via the loop. Bottles be fleeces, later carpets, following that they frequently end up in garbage dump. PETase reverses the manufacture trial, reduction polyesters to their house blocks, prepared to be utilized once again. They could be utilized to do more than plasticity, and how would escape with any more than mainly we'd shut the hinge. We'd in fact include appropriate recirculation, explainable Professor McGeehan. The ferment is a quantity of year off of creature developed on a common scope. It will requirement to deteriorate PET more rapid rather than its present period of a few days up proper economically sustainable as portion of the recirculation scenery. Professor McGeehan is encouraging how the symbolism the start of a change in the control of plastic. Down there is an immediate requirement to bring the sum of plasticity how ends up in garbage dump and the environmental, and I believe if we can accept these technologies we in fact include a capacity decision in the next to making how, he added.